Hey sports fans, Greg Medford, Medford Knife, MKT USA, and ASK Knives now. It's a lot of stuff to remember and spit out all at once. We have a bitchin' batch of knives bounding for Texas, I believe. It is Texas. For Houston, Texas. All you folks out there in Texas, I just want you to know, my heart goes out to you. The President of the United States has abandoned our border and your border. And instead of rolling in there, wrapped in red, white, and blue, asking you guys to pump more oil and make it happen for America, he's stiffed it to use so we can buy oil from a terrorist named Maduro in Venezuela, a terrorist family, the Saud family of Saudi Arabia, and terrorists and mullahs of Iran. Seems like a good plan. Why employ people in Texas? Why employ people in Alaska and Oklahoma, West Virginia, the Keystone Pipeline? Why do that? You guys down in Houston know this better than anyone. We could turn on the whole world with what's going on in Texas, and we don't. Weakness. So, I think Arizona is the greatest state in the union. I love this place. I love the dirt. I love the mountains. I love the people. We're prickly like the cactuses we grew up around. But if it all goes to shit, I'm coming to Texas. And remember, when I get there, I'll be in a pickup truck. There'll be a bunch of guns with me, and I will be ready for the revolution. In the meantime, I'm going to send knives over so that you Texans can have some knives, all right? Now, you can go find these knives. You can call Gil or Paul at 800-203-0233 or the pay-for version, 281-453-8801. This is wildaboutsportinggoods.com. Spelled exactly the way I said it. No goofy, progressive, weird spellings. It's not wild like W-Y-L-D-E. It's just W-I-L-D. Wildaboutsportinggoods.com. Check them out. Let's get on the table and check out the knives. Come on. What we have here, guys, is we run across this. I'm not going to go into detail on this because it's a lot of repetition. But let me talk about it in broad strokes. Every knife on the table but one is tumbled. Every knife on the table is S35 VN. The rest of these are all tumbled. We have Tontos, drop points, Tontos, drop points. We've got anodized titanium, matching both sides with matching hardware. Matching both sides with contrasting hardware. I really like that. I think that's lovely. I love the way the stuff pops on the plain background. We've got anodized with some engraving with contrasting hardware, which matches the engraving. Super sexy. I don't know if this will sell in Texas, you know, an American flag instead of a Texas flag. But I know there are patriots in Texas who love this great nation as much as I do. One of you ought to be holding that knife when the revolution starts. That ought to be the knife that you plant into the first liberal that you can. All right, moving on. We've got a, so what we have here is a 1945 stripe. So this is right at the end of World War II, 1945 star and bar with the jaws of a flying tiger. Now, these jaws were put on Mustangs. They were put on P-47s. They were famously put on P-40s flown by the Flying Tigers during the China, Burma, India pre-World War II years. There's rivets all over this thing. They're tactile, contrasting hardware, drop point. What a sexy knife. This has got a little filigree lasered onto it, contrasting hardware that matches the filigree. Just got subtle, classy color to it. It's just beyond what you expect in a real usable knife. Some mild sculpting. What do we call this? Peaks and valleys. What do we call this? Bark?
Yes.
Peaks and valleys, bark, and bronze with contrasting hardware. Peaks and valleys, blue with some blue and contrasting hardware. Another bark, but all kind of tumbled with mild bronze contrasting hardware. Light blue, falling leaf, contrasting hardware. Another bark. I love that. I don't know, what do we call that one?
Water ripples, I think.
Water ripples. Man, these guys have gotten so cheeky. You know, you want to, when you look at a knife that's had this much handwork, you want to have the handwork accentuated, and you want the mechanical nature of things to really pop, which is why we leave them in kind of a contrasting color. What are we calling this one?
Dragon skin.
Dragon skin? Man, that's sexy. When you see this and you see some sculpting that's not in an area, it's because there's a relief underneath it. We don't want to change the cross-sectional geometry for spring tensioning. What's this one called?
Peaks and valleys, I think.
That's Peaks and Valleys again? Oh yeah, I guess it is. This is really cool. This one's just, this one's like bead blasted and brushed with a very, very gentle ano on it. Contrasting bronze hardware. You know, guys, there's a lot of effort. We're trying to get you guys knives when you spend this kind of money. Look, a lot of guys understand why the knives cost this much, especially, you know, see what tires cost now. Look at what everything's costing. Look what a tank of gas costs. A tank of gas for my truck the other day was $145. It was $145 for my gas. And the knife, it hasn't gone up in price. It hasn't gone up 1 penny since all this started. And it's probably going to. It's 4 gases, it's 4 tanks of gas if you drive a Ford F-150. That's how much a Bitchin hand-ground American-made knife costs. It seems like a goddamn deal to me. Anyways, there's a lot of effort in the team and everybody that's composing these orders and putting these knives together to tie them together and have everyone kind of have a little bit of an artistic vision to it. And you'll see a consistency where we contrast textures and colors and sheens. And by doing that, you paint a beautiful little picture. And if you're going to carry a pocket knife, it ought to be lovely. It ought to function fantastically. It ought to feel like a fixed blade when it's open. And it ought to be something you sharpen over the years, treat it carefully, and leave it to your kids. And it's money well spent. Think about a $100 knife that lasts you a year, costs you $100 a year. A $500 knife that lasts you 20 years doesn't cost you much at all. Anyways, wild about sporting goods, call up Gil or Paul out there in Texas, down in the great state of Texas in Houston. Let them know we sent you from Med for Knife. Remember, we're not on social media anymore. You won't find us on Instagram. You won't find us on Facebook, Shitbag, or Monkey Balls. We are going to be at medforknife.com and medforknife.com only. We have a blog page there. We're putting all of our fun stuff there. And we want you to come to us because nobody can censor us where we're at. We won't be shut down anymore by anybody. See you around.